What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on something I'm sure you guys have seen online. We're going to do a DIY diesel heater in a Harbor Freight box. And I know there's plenty of videos out there, people doing this, and I've gotten some of my ideas from those videos. But I do have a couple little things I'm going to change, which I think are a good idea. So stick around and we'll get right to it. So there's a whole mess of parts that kind of go into this whole build. Most of them are included when you buy this kit on Amazon, which I will have linked in the description. It comes with, you know, some of the piping, some clamps, this intake little vent. Some of the things you got to buy separate, or like this hose, which we'll get into later, that comes in the kit. All this stuff will be linked in the description, and as I'm building it throughout this video, I will kind of pick and point out what parts came with the diesel heater and what parts I had to buy separately. All right, so first and foremost, this is an Apache 4800, you know, Pelican knockoff from Harbor Freight. Nice and cheap. Something you don't mind cutting up for a project like this, because you're gonna have to drill some holes. This is a diesel heater off of Amazon. Pretty cheap, I think like 130 bucks, and it comes with most of what you need. I think in total, I'm at about $300 for this whole build. So yeah, let's get right to it. All right, first we're gonna go over all these ports on the diesel heater. So the side that comes with like the mesh face, that is an air intake. This first metal pipe on this side is also an air intake. This is where our fuel is gonna go in. This is our exhaust. So this is where all the nasty fumes are gonna go out the box. And then on this side is gonna be our outlet for our heat. So this is where all of our hot air is gonna come out. So I think the first connection we're gonna do, even before we actually mount this in the box, is we're gonna go ahead and drill our hole for our air intake and go ahead and kind of get that figured where that's gonna go. So this is one of the ducts that came in the kit. If you pull these little tabs, it kind of comes apart, and that'll help me line things up easier. I'm gonna set the vent off to the side, and basically what we're doing is just making sure that we drill a hole center. So I flipped it around the other way. What I've done is just kind of made a little mark and eyeballed what center is. And then next, we're just gonna take our 3-inch hole saw, and we're gonna go ahead and drill a hole through the box. Get our starting hole. I'm just gonna look and make sure that this looks like exactly where it's gonna wanna be. So far, so good. We'll go ahead and drill the rest of the way. All right, so our intake vent's just gonna sit like that with the box. So we took our duct, we left our vent off, went ahead and took that little mesh screen that was on the diesel heater off, and that actually is what holds these cases together. But once you get your dryer vent on here, then your clamp will hold it together. So no worries on that coming apart. And the vent I used to fit over that is actually 3-inch dryer vent, and that will be linked in the description. That does not come with the heater. That's something you gotta buy separately. So I put it on there, clamped it, and then ran it to here. Had other vents sticking through, fitted that over the flange, and then used another worm clamp. And these worm clamps were provided with the kit of the diesel heater on Amazon. So now that that's all attached, we're gonna go ahead and slide this over here, and we're gonna start working at how we're gonna do our outlet on this side of the box. If you guys have watched any other videos on DIY diesel heaters, you know most of the time people use those 2 aluminum flanges for the output. I'm gonna try a little something different. I was going for a quick release. My buddy Matt's actually built one of these at the same time, and he gave me the idea to try this thing out. So this is how we're gonna do it. Basically, this is a 3-inch silicone hose coupler. You normally find it in like automotive applications, capable of handling up to 500 degrees. So it should work perfect for that. These 2 pieces go in this sleeve, and then this locks around the sleeve, and that would act as the quick release. But we may actually not end up needing this piece of the kit. We'll just have to see here. Right now, the plan is to slip the sleeve on this, like so, and then take our other black collar, slip that on, and then we drill our hole in our box. This is essentially gonna slide through the hole. There's gonna be a hose clamp on the diesel heater side right here, and then also a hose clamp right there. And then our 3-inch hose that will actually route the heat to our tent or camper. We'll go over this, and then this will just simply in its little collet like this, and that's solid. It doesn't fall out or anything. So hopefully that O-ring can stand up to it, and that might work just fine. If it doesn't end up working out, I can go the route everybody else chooses. I just wanted something else quick release. Also, when your outlet hose is not on the box, I bought this 3-inch plug. So basically this goes in there and tightens up, and then that just keeps any dirt or junk out of there, and also keeps your collar from falling off, and just kind of makes it all solid. So we're gonna try to go this route, see how it works out for me, and you can decide if you want to go this way as well. Alrighty, we're the 3.5-inch hole drilled. Now this, you can see this fits through nicely. Once we're all said and done, I could even put a bead of silicone around this just to keep any dust or anything out. So we'll go ahead and slide this back into position. We'll go ahead and get a clamp on there. All right, so this is looking like it's gonna work pretty good. Even just this alone is holding this really good, but I am still gonna hold this down with a bracket, which we'll get into later. This can slip right over here. I'm thinking that's gonna live right there. And then of course, when we put this on there and tighten it up, that's gonna keep anything from kind of falling out or getting any junk up in the diesel heater. All right, so this is our hose that we're gonna use to route the heat from the heater to the tent or camper. It's a little demonstration. I'm gonna put a clamp on that, but basically all this is gonna do is just click right on just like that. And it'll be nice and easy to set up. I don't have to use a screwdriver or anything of that nature to get my hose connected to my box. Next up is the exhaust. Everything you see right here did not come with the Amazon diesel heater kit. You had to buy this separate. Just like everything, this stuff will be linked in the description. This flexible pipe is really the key to all of this. The pipe that they give you in the kit just doesn't fit, honestly, at all. So you do have to buy this pipe, and then this is just some heat wrap. We're gonna wrap it up, and these are little kind of like a metal zip tie that comes with this just to secure it so we get it all wrapped, and then of course some worm clamps to secure it to each side. We will have to cut this to length. This is going to be our exhaust, so basically we're going to drill a hole in the box. This is going to slide through the box. This pipe is going to be able to go on here with a clamp, and then we're going to cut this to length and attach it to the diesel heater itself. All right, with our 1 3/4 hole drilled, you can see now this fits in there nicely. Basically gonna hold this up, probably make a little mark, or I can just take a drill and just drill our 3 holes here. And then they give you some bolts that are a little long, so I'll probably bolt them up and then end up kind of cutting them off on the other side, and then also help to keep them from being able to back out. All right, we got our piece all cut. You can see it just slips on there, and then that just slips on there, and we'll be able to put worm clamps, that heat tape on there, and then I'll end up snipping these off a little shorter just so they're not sticking out. But for now, we're gonna pull this off because before this can actually go on, we're gonna have to mount our unit to the box, which I feel comfortable doing now that we got some of these major holes drilled. So this plate comes with the Amazon kit. You just bend this 90 degrees down here, and you do that so that way this can slip on here, and then you can end up drilling your holes and bolting it through. I'm gonna tighten this plate up on here, and then once the plate's tight, I'll be able to take my drill and just kind of poke 2 holes through here and then secure this bracket and the diesel heater to the box with just 2 simple bolts. To secure the bracket to the box, we're going to use this Allen bolt, and it comes with this washer. I chose this just because it kind of makes it flush on the bottom, so it's not a huge bolt head sticking out to catch on things, slide over things easily. Then on the top side, of course, a washer, and then a nylock. For our other intake, we got this little intake piece right here. There have been some people who have drilled a hole in the side and kind of let this sticking out a little bit to intake some fresh air from outside. I think first I'm gonna try to leave it inside the box here, and if it's gathering up some fumes or some smells from heat and stuff I don't like, then I can move it out there. Obviously I can drill a hole, but I can't fill a hole after I drill it. So I'm gonna experiment with this. This piece of pipe comes in the kit from Amazon, and so does this, so you do not need to buy anything extra for this part of the build. Next, we're gonna get our exhaust on. We're just gonna use some hose clamps. I may end up putting some exhaust putty on here just to really truly seal this up. I don't have any on me right this second. That's probably something I'll do at a later time. But for now, we'll just kind of show you getting it on there. And then from there, just tighten those up to help keep any exhaust gases from escaping into the box. All right, before moving on to the wiring, we got a few more things to mount up. So this is our electric pump. This is actually going to be pulling the diesel out of the tank and pumping it into the diesel heater itself. This little rubber holder and this pump do come in the kit. As you can see, there's a connector on there with the provided wiring harness, which we will get into later. Basically, they want this mounted at 45-degree angle, so it'll be mounted just about like this. I'm choosing this side of the box. That way when it's shut and running, the pump's going to be, you know, just about here and away from the exhaust, just so it's not, you know, right in the middle and then just kind of sitting here right by the exhaust getting hot. I'd rather have it over here away from the exhaust. So we're gonna do the same thing we did to secure the bracket. Basically use one of those bolts and just go ahead and mount this at 45 degrees right over here, just so it falls nicely in place right there. Next up, we're gonna be mounting the tank. The tank that comes with the kit on Amazon is it's pretty huge. It's 10 liters. Probably last you a long time and probably way more fuel than you really need. I didn't really like the size of it. I looked on Amazon and found this one. I believe it's 5 liters or 3 liters possibly. I don't remember exactly, but it's a much better size in my opinion, and just kind of looks better with the whole setup. A more appropriate size, possibly depending on where you're going to use this heater. The tank has some predetermined spots that you're going to mount it with. So basically we're just going to kind of put this where we want, center it up on the lid. I'm going to take a drill, go ahead and punch through on both sides, and then we'll secure it with some bolts. All right, with our tank mounted up, our fuel pump mounted up, next we're going to start running the fuel lines itself. This is supplied in the Amazon kit, as well as the fuel filter that comes with the kit. So to go about getting our fuel line connected to our tank here, we're looking at the bottom. So basically we're going to drill a hole, and basically we're going to end up routing the fuel line through the lid and then to that fuel filter. The setup they give you, it's this little nipple, and it comes with an O-ring, comes with a nut, another O-ring. I gotta say I'm a little skeptical on how long this is gonna seal diesel from leaking out of this thing. I kind of wish that I could put it up top and have a fitting on both sides of the hose that kind of goes down and kind of sucks it up like a straw instead. But you know what? We're just gonna go ahead and give it a shot, and if it ends up leaking, then I will figure something out at a later date. But this is how most people have done it, so it seems to work, and we'll see how it works for us. I'm gonna go with a 1/4 inch drill bit, so it's just barely slightly smaller than these outside threads. So hopefully whenever I go to plunge this through the plastic after I drill the hole, it being such a tight fit around these threads is also gonna help seal along with both of these O-rings. Okay, now before I try to fish this thing through this hole, what I've done is put it in the incorrect way, rotated it until it kind of created some threads in the plastic, so it'll be easier for me to rotate when it's just the nipple sticking through. What we're going to use is a fish tape. If you guys have watched the trailer build series, I've used this thing on all 3 builds to route my trailer wiring down the tongue. Super useful thing to have in the garage. You never know when you're going to need it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this through the hole. I'm going to let it come out the lid there, and then once it's outside on the lid, I'm going to turn this over like that, butt them up, and then I'm going to run a piece of tape around them both to hold it, and then I'll be able to pull the fish tape back through the tank and have my nipple exposed right there, and then I can kind of rotate it with a pair of pliers and get it seated into place. So the tape idea did not work. Now we got a twist tie. We're pushing that through the nipple. I just got this kind of bent over here so it'll hold it, but easy to pull through after it's in there. So yeah, we'll try fishing it through with a method just like this. Next up, we're gonna go ahead and put our tube on our nipple here. It is quite a tight fit. A little bit of silicone spray, nice lube for it, and it should go right on. All right, so I won't lie, that was not easy to get on there, but a little bit of silicone spray. I kind of used my pliers and very gently just applied force and slowly but surely got it on there. This is a spring clamp that's provided in the Amazon kit. So now what we're gonna do is drill a 1/4 inch hole through our lid, and then we'll be able to start routing this in the box and finish up our routing inside the box. All right, once again, keeping in mind that there's an exhaust right down here. We don't want the fuel filter, you know, just sitting right up there by the exhaust. Basically, it's gonna go in this side, filter through here, go out and go through the pump. I'm thinking I might end up sticking it probably somewhere like right around here, and then I'll have a short run to the pump and it'll be away from the exhaust. All right guys, as you can see, this ended up working out pretty slick. It runs through the lid, into our filter, up to our pump, out of our pump, and down into the unit itself. I zip tied it to the filter here to get it away from the exhaust, and then I only made it as long as it needed to be to get up there to the pump while opening and shutting the lid, and you can see it stays out of the way. It's not going to get pinched when I'm opening and shutting this. And one way you can help keep that from happening is using these spring clamps. When you get them on there, it allows you to kind of twist the line, influence it into a way where it's not just all kind of crazy swirly spaghetti hanging out. They give you plenty of line in that kit, so no worries about running out if you mess up. Highly recommend using some silicone spray to be able to get that line on. Saw a lot of people online using rubber hose for all these junctions and stuff like that, and I always kind of wondered why, because it looked like the line would fit. I just don't think maybe they didn't have spray for that to fit over there correctly. And I prefer a spring clamp over a worm clamp, because a worm clamp on a rubber hose over time, those little slits in the worm clamp, the hose will actually start to deteriorate and protrude through, and then you end up having a leak. Spring clamps can contract and expand at temperature and you'll never have it really mess the hose up like a regular worm clamp will. So I think it's worth the extra effort to get these hose to fit over these nipples to avoid having to use a whole bunch of worm clamps and some rubber hose that will end up failing on you later on down the road. All right guys, with our fuel lines all done, next we're going to move on to the wiring. They give you this wire harness that just plugs right into the diesel heater. It's got another connector that runs up here to our fuel pump, and I've just kind of zip tied it to the lines here just to make it a little neater. Zip tied our excess. So coming off this main connector, we got our power and ground, which we're going to connect to our portable power bank with this cigarette lighter lead, and this is not included in the kit. I will have this linked in the description. And then our other 3 wires are for our monitor, and this monitor right here is basically what we're going to use to be able to change temperature, monitor the unit, turn it on and off. They do include a remote, which I'm not a real big fan of remotes like this when you can't actually see what's going on with the unit, so I probably won't use that much. The goal is to have this inside the tent or camper with me and use this. Alright guys, so how we're going to connect our wiring harness to the box, we're going to be using these connectors on Amazon that are pretty cool. So basically this part will be attached to the box, this will be attached to our harness, and then obviously to just make a connection, we just plug it right in, and then it's got a little release, you can unplug it. It's a nice setup. You do have to solder the wires on the back side and on this other side. I'm gonna end up going with this 2-wire one, and then I also have a 5-pin one I was originally gonna do all 5 wires on, but unfortunately it couldn't support the larger wires for the power and ground, so we're just going to do 2 separate ones. No big deal, and it's worth it to have the correct sizing to support the wire and the current that it's going to be handling. All right, we got 2 7/8 of an inch holes drilled into the box side by side here. That's going to allow this to pass through, and next we just kind of got it laid out how we're going to end up soldering. So basically go ahead and pull your wires through the hole. You're going to have to make sure you solder them with the wires already through the hole, otherwise it's just not going to work. So pull the wires through first, then make your connections here and here, and then after that we'll be able to secure these to the box and then work on the rest of the harness. Alrighty guys, we got all the wiring done. You can see I just kind of tucked stuff in here. I might mess with that a little bit more, but I just want to show you guys all the connections done. So this is going to be our power connection, our power and ground, and then this is going to be for our monitor. So all I ended up, when I snipped the harness that they gave me, all I did was connect it to this and then run it to this, and this should be plenty long, 4 feet or so, or around there. I made our power lead. I put the cigarette lighter end on it. This is probably like 6 feet or 8 feet. I may shorten it up. I just wanted to make it actually extra long for the time being, and I can shorten it up later if I find out this ends up being too much. Here we got our dryer vent that we bought separately, 16 feet. I cut it down to about probably 4 or 5 feet or so. I'm gonna end up figuring out how long I want it and shorten it up. Use the other vent that came with the kit, and this is what's going to be basically poking in your tent or your camper. So this works out pretty good. All that's left now is to test this thing. Alrighty guys, I have been running this in the garage here, doing some other projects. I'm actually right in the middle of remodeling my kitchen. So I've been using this to kind of keep the garage warm while I'm doing some other stuff. And I gotta say, it's worked out pretty great. On initial startup, it takes a while to prime this system, so don't get discouraged if it doesn't seem like it's working. Pump kind of comes on when it wants to, it seems like. And it took a while to get rid of all the air in the filter and to also start pumping the fluid to the diesel heater before it actually started producing some heat. So that took a couple tries. I had to turn it on and off a few times for it to keep on priming, because I think whenever it starts to run the pump and it doesn't see fluid, it automatically shuts down. So that took just a little bit. There may be an easier way to prime that than just by running it multiple times, but it did end up working after about 3 or 4 tries. That being said, now that the system's been primed, this thing, it works pretty flawlessly. So pretty much all I do, plug it into my power bank here. All this stuff fits in there, so my quick disconnects that I showed you before, all that stuff coils up, fits in here, as well as our hose. So pull that out, connect our screen, connect to our power bank. Of course, in a normal situation, the screen and the power bank would be in our tent and or camper with us. And then of course, this would be running into your sleeping space as well to keep it warm. All right, so once your power is on, this is what your display is gonna look like. Pretty much just press and hold down your power button. And then as you can see, these little bars determine what setting it's on as far as the heat output. So we'll go ahead and crank it up. I believe 6 is the max. I did drop this and break the screen. That's why it looks a little funny, so be careful with this thing. Maybe mounting it in the box would have worked good to avoid that happening, but oh well. The remote does seem to work good. I haven't got to play with all the settings yet, but it is supposed to display what the temperature is. Right now it's pulling, you saw 126, 160 watts. and that's with this thing getting fired up. Once it is on for a while, it is not gonna pull that much power. All right, now we hear the thing starting to fire up. You can hear a little pump ticking. And this will be the stage that you're at where you may have some issues with priming. But once it's primed in, this thing fires up nice and quick. Maybe just like a minute or so for it to get fully warmed up. But once it's on, man, it is pumping out some good heat. Okay, I went ahead and tilted it up. This is how you'd normally run it. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's definitely a lot quieter now with the box closed. You don't even really hear the pump much anymore. And then I just kind of put the exhaust on here. That's where the bulk of the noise is coming from, is the exhaust. And the muffler part I don't even have on there right now, so it can get even quieter than that. This does get pretty warm. Obviously, look, I can still hold it with my hand. This is metal right here. I can hold it with my hand and it's not burning me or anything, but it does heat up. This hose seems to be holding up really well. Keep in mind, you don't want your hose drooping down in front of your exhaust and burning it if you were to leave it without a pipe. So as you can see, it's not drawing much power, 20 watts or so when it's actually fully warmed up and running. Even with it at 37% left on this battery bank, the way it sits, you can see it still has about 10 or 11 hours of runtime. This is a 748 watt hour battery bank, so not a super huge one, but also has quite a bit of power. So it doesn't really suck up too much power, which is nice. Alright, now as far as fuel consumption goes, I filled this thing up probably halfway or so just to test, just in case I had some leaks under here, which by the way, this is holding up good. It ran probably 6 hours, maybe 8 hours. It only burned that much fuel, and that was on high setting. So at a lower setting, it's going to use less fuel. So pretty fuel efficient. This little tank I think is going to be plenty sufficient versus the big one that the kit came with. So I am glad that I went with this instead of the huge tank on the back. Alright, now as far as powering down the unit goes, they tell you not to just immediately cut the power. Just go ahead and hold this. It'll go into a shutdown mode. After you hold the power button and it goes down into shutdown mode, it'll take a few minutes to hear the fan to run, and it'll kind of slowly die out, and then it'll shut off. If you just pull the power, I've seen people online talking about how their diesel heater clogs up and then it doesn't work when they need it to work. So having it shut down properly, I think, is a very important step when it comes to owning one of these things. Now, to be 100% honest, there is some already pre-built portable solutions out there on Amazon that I think are great choices. I've heard of people running those with some great luck. Didn't involve them having to build anything, and honestly a little cheaper than what it came out for our build. I think ours was somewhere around $300 or so. But yeah, some great pre-built solutions on Amazon. I'll link some of those. You can check those out, read reviews, and decide for yourself if you'd rather just buy one or build one like we did in this video. Alright guys, so thanks again as always for watching. I really hope to get out and test this thing here this winter. I do have some time left, a little bit more cold left. I've been super busy, like I said, remodeling the kitchen, and I got a bunch of stuff going on. That being said, we got some cool projects coming up, and I got a really big project coming up that I will end up flooding the channel with a bunch of videos on that, and I think you guys will end up liking it a lot, and I'm really excited to start it. So once again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.